You, Avi. So not only will we do a plenary, but I will endeavour to tell you what we'd like to achieve today, and then you can hold me to it. How's the old adage go? You tell them what you're going to tell them, and then you tell them, and then you tell them what you told them, or something like that. One of these southern preachers, I think. Either way. So what we'd like to do today is, I think we're going to try and actually finish this first of the Yud Gimel Ikrim. Today will be the last. We could go on and on, but we are sticking to our remit, which is we are beschäftigt. We are interested primarily in the Rambam's approach. We're going to do two things today. We will look very briefly at a ha'ara that we had a while ago as we started looking at the way the Rambam brings it down in Yad, which is he first delineates the contours of what this yediyah is that one has to have. Only then does he mention that it's a mitzvah. So that's point number one we're going to deal with. I found a Radvaz on that. Point number two is we're going to highlight the use of Anochi Hashem Elokecha, Havaya Elokecha. What are these two things, Havaya and Elokim? And I will share with you a Gorn and a Nefesh HaChaim. And then finally, and which is the third point that we want to do, is that which I sent you earlier this morning. I color-coded it. It's not here in color, but when I send you'll see that it's in color, and that is a very, very, very important Rambam in Moreh Nevuchim, where he does two things. He describes 5 groups of people and their connection to this idea of Yedias Hashem. And it is splendid. It is an unbelievable Rambam. And then at the end, he says something quite astounding about that connection. And with this, we will finish. And we've got about 40 minutes to do all of those things. Los Gates. Let's start. Point number 1 is source 14, bottom of page 7. So Tshuvas Radvaz, Chelik Ches Siman Aleph. Yeah, says the Radvaz. Somebody asked him the following: Im yesh tam b'masheroinu l'Rav Zal mixas halachos poiseach mitzvos asay lasos kach, u'b'mixas halachos poiseach bedin atzmai. Sometimes when the Rambam discusses halachas, he will sometimes start with and say mitzvos asay, to read Shema twice a day, blah blah blah, and then he'll go on to tell us the details. And sometimes, rarely, but sometimes he does the other way around, and he first delineates and writes an idea, and then sort of adds afterwards, and this is a mitzvah, and this is the mitzvah, and is there a reason? Very interesting. Look at this tshuva over the page. Says, we pointed this out, right, when we saw it, says the Radvaz, Im zu she'ela. I'm not sure whether this was ironic. If this is indeed a question, sounds like he's not convinced he wasn't a brisker, obviously. So it sounds like, he wasn't utterly convinced that it's a thing, as they would say today. But if it is, he says, then what I'm going to have to do is, so what I'm going to need to do now is lay out the beginning of all of the relevant halachas in the whole of Yad, and to give time for each of them, and he then proceeds to do that. I obviously didn't copy out the whole tshuva, because it wasn't relevant for us. But this is what he says. If it's a thing, imzu shaila, then what you're forcing me basically to go through all of them and give a reason. And he does in hours. Hilchos Yisodei HaTorah. Pasach Yisodei Yisodos. Now listen to this. The Rambam was unable, says the Radvaz, to open his remarks by saying mitzvahs hasei leida. Why? She'ein ze dovo yodua elo lachachomim. Because this notion, this concept that there is a single God who's the source of everything, absolutely fascinating. I really am. I'm challenged by this, Radvaz, because it would appear to be contrary to that which we have learnt in the Rambam in Moreh. If you remember that this is something that is. And this is what sets apart, if you remember the first 2 of the Dibros, that it's something that is achievable through intellect. He says, Shein Davido elo lachachomim, uleficha chayitzarich lahakdim mahu yedias Hashem. Therefore, the Rambam took on the role, first of all, of educator. He had to tell us first, what is it? And then he writes, Yedias Dava Zeh Mitzvahs Aseh. And then he writes, this knowledge is a Mitzvahs Aseh. And for that reason, he also says later, Ha'el hanichbod v'hanoira hazeh mitzvah la'ahavol yira oisai. I find this Radvaz astounding. I don't fully understand how he can say this in the Das or Rambam, because I think we demonstrated from a number of other Rambams, primarily in Moira, that this was not the approach of the Rambam, but for the sake of honesty, I had to include it. Anyway, that's the Radvaz. We'll just leave it as is. Then we move on to a Vilna Gaon and a Nefesh HaChaim. And this is Yesodistika stuff. It happens to be relevant here as well. The words Hashem Elokim, Havaya versus Elokim. We're going to now hopefully get a serious understanding of these two ideas. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. I was going to go to the end of the Pasuk as well, and the Asher Hitzesicha Meretz Mitzrayim, and maybe we'll do a quick comment on that. But we're going to focus on Hashem Elokim, because these are two names of Hashem that are fundamental and central and often are found together. And what do they really mean? So I'm going to go a little bit backwards, and I'm going to mention to you the words we say HaKadosh Baruch Hu. HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And we say these, I think often don't stop to think about how unique and special and unlikely a combination these two names of Hashem are. Because Kadosh, as we're going to see, delineates what's the translation of the word Kadosh? Separate, very good. V'nikdash pentukdash hamaleya. Kadosh means utterly separate, unknowable. And Baruch is, the word Baruch is Miloshen, as the Rashba says, Berecha, a Mekoyer, a Mayon, something which is Mizborech, and it is connected to source and keeps more and more and more. So one is connection, and one is almost disconnection, something which is infinite and disembodied and unknowable. And we put the two together, and that is very significant. Okay? We'll develop this now. Let's have a look. Says the Gaon. We'll start off with a Gaon. The Gaon is source 16 here. It's in the beginning, Aderes Eliyahu, the beginning of Dvarim, where it says, the Pasuk says, Hashem Eloi, Moshe Rabbeinu tells Klal Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu diber eleinu b'chorev leimor. Hashem Elokeinu spoke to us in Chorev. Now, so the Gaon now does a deep dive into these words, Hashem Elokeinu. Let's do this. Source 16. Umash posach b'shnei shemes elu shehem klal kol haTorah kula v'chol hashemos ki haKadosh Baruch Hu. This is something that we've visited already in the Tshuvas HaRashba. Remember when we spoke about the Nusach of the Bracha? Ki haKadosh Baruch Hu nistar mitzad atzmusoi v'nigle mitzad ma'asov. Insofar as his essence is concerned, he is utterly unknowable, and we can't even refer to it. On the other hand, he's nigle mitzad ma'asov. He is revealed from the perspective of what he does. That means there is a rotzoin that he should be known per his actions, and therefore, back to that Shuvas HaRashba. Therefore, we say in every bracha we speak directly to him, and then go back to the third person. V'shem Havaya Baruch Hu. Now here he explains. V'shem Havaya Baruch Hu Moira outside that Tzmusa Yizbarach. When we use the name Havaya, it indicates. It's not even by the way, it's not a direct reference because there is no, right? Remember, not even B'kutz Shel Yud, but it's an indication of Tzad at Tzmusay. Ve'elokim Hu Moira al Hashgachosoi al Briyosov. When we say Elokim, which of course, as Chazal I think it's the B'chovis Halbavos points out, that it's also the same gematria as Hateva. Elokim, it's plural. It is the single that Ibn Ezra says at the beginning of Bereshis, the word Elokim, it's in the plural, because it means the single unified source of all powers. Yes? The way that he oversight and interacts over his creatures. Therefore, in Bereshis, we only find the name Elokim. Ubahashgacha, then the Gaon drills down a little bit further. Ubahashgacha is based in Yonim. Hashgacha klolis, tahenu al kol briyos al kol ha'olam b'chlolus. general hashgacha, the hashgacha protis shemashkiach al Yisrael levad, ukenegdoi hu shem Elokim. And therefore we say Elokeinu because there's an aspect of his hashgacha that is personalized to us. That's why we don't just say Elokim as a disembodied entity that has oversight and is involved in the world generally, but Elokeinu means that there is a special relationship in hashgacha for Klal Yisrael. Okay? And that's why, in context of the posuk he's commenting on, Hashem Elokeinu dibeleinu b'chayre v'leima, therefore use both words. V'lacheinu b'chol baruch Hashem Elokeinu melech ha'olam, dainu mitzad ha'ne'elam, v'Elokeinu shemashkiach aleinu b'protius. Melech ha'olam, even though he's mashkiach b'protius, he's still mashkiach on the rest of the world. So far, so good. Pretty straightforward. You're familiar with these concepts. Now let's see, Let's see the Nefesh HaChaim now. It says the Nefesh HaChaim, Sha'ar Aleph Perek Yud Aleph, Ulezois hamoin tzvois ma'alo. A malach is a single manifestation of a divine rotzon. And they come in categories and groups because their perception of Hashem differs. Okay? So therefore, there are kitos yesh. There are many, source 17. There are many different groups. Yesh achas oimeres kodosh vehem hasrofim. The Seraphim, the fiery ones, perceive Hashem as, wow, he is distant, kodosh, separate, as it says in Heicholes. The Bereshis of Pikuda beHeichola Tinyon Shom Ben Beis Hamalal V'Sham Ukamesh Chas Seraphim Oimdim Mima'aloi V'Karazel Zeva Omar Kodosh 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 Hashem Tzvakos. He is Kodosh from all the three Olamos, yes, Kodosh, separate. V'Hashemis Le'umasam Mishabchim V'Oimrim Baruch K'Vayid Hashemim Koimai. And these are, that's of course, that's right. And these are, who are they? They are the Ifanim and the Chayos. So the Ifanim and the Chayos perceive Hashem's connection to the world, Baruch, and they daven that it should be Misrabeh. The Seraphim can't understand that. They have a whole different perspective where Hashem is distant, disconnected, above, Kadosh. And therefore, by the way, think about this. We say, Hashem el-Melech HaGodel HaKodesh v'chulam mekablim aleim el malchus shamayim zeh mizeh v'noisnim reshus zeh lo zeh lahakdish leyotzram b'nachas ruach. They, so to speak, give reshus to each other, to give space to the other perspective, even though it is wrong from their perspective, so to speak. Because from the perspective of the Seraphim, Hashem is so na'ale u'meroimim. These are the fiery Seraphim. Hashem is kodosh, kodosh, kodosh. He's above. He's this is mahusoi, so to speak, to the extent that they are, and connection to them is unthinkable, unthinkable. So v'chulam noizim shel zel hakdish v'sof b'ruvenima kedusha kulam ke'echad oimim v'oimim b'yira kodosh. And then v'fanim v'chayes hakodesh barash godol misnasim u'masrofim le'umasam m'shabchim v'oimim baruch k'vei Hashemim koimai. But never the twain shall meet. Either your perspective is one of kodosh or of baruch. Says the Nefesh HaChaim.
This is why they say actually just giving each other reshus because they're confined to their
he doesn't say that. I'm adding that. Correct. I don't think he says that. I'm adding that. To be fair, that's not him. That's me. Yes, correct. The Hema Ifanim v'Chayis K'Mishom Razal v'Ha'ika Baruch. The Gemara Reish Perek Gidanosh v'Ha'ika Baruch Ifanim Ud Amrlei K'Mish Sidran Sheknes Agzoni B'Kedushas Yetzer Shekol Koyach Mekadeshes K'Vi Mekorav Shosha Beilamis. Aval Yisrael Kevutzei Mata Oimrim Shneim Kodosh uBaruch. We say Kodosh and Baruch. We say HaKodosh Baruch Hu. Liyosam Kolelim Kolam. How can we say that? This is because we have within us both of those Nekudos. Remember, the Adam is created as, this is really the whole of Nefesh HaChaim and Sha'ar Aleph, and this is the flow of what he's saying. Man was created, Ocher v'kedem tzartoni, man was created at the end, because every aspect and koyach of all of the olamis, of all of the bria, was created first, and then Hashem took a little bit of everything and created Adam. So we have all of this, and that's how and why we can be the engine and the driving force of all of reality. And therefore we are the only ones that can combine these opposites, Yira and Ahava, if you like. Yes? Immanence and transcendence, all the body and soul, all the different connection, and therefore we have this, and we are able, and we perceive Hashem as Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, that's point number 2. And now we're going to move on. I'm going to miss out source 18, which you can look at in your own time, because it's what I've put there in bold at the end. That Igeris from the Rambam of Igeris Tchias Amesim. It's an interesting point. Yes, there. And now we come to a magnum opus, an incredible Rambam here in Moreh Nevuchim, Chelek Gimel, source 19, Chelek Gimel, Perek Nun Aleph. And here the Rambam sketches out for us in brilliant detail a moshel of how, and you see he reveals so much here. It's towards the end of Moreh Nevuchim, Chelek Gimel, Perek Nun Aleph. I think there's only 2 or 3 more prokim till the end. And it contains here, to my mind, a number of chidushim, but 2 main areas I want to focus on. And that's why I did it here in color. I'm sorry, this is printed out in black and white, but you'll have it you'll see. He says as follows. What he's going to do is he's going to sketch out a moshel of 5 groups of people who have a different perception of a fictitious king, and he's going to relate it to the different groups of Jews who have a mabat, a perspective, an understanding of Hashem. It's absolutely majestic. Let's have a look. The king is in his palace. And here we have group 1 is Ktsasam Anshe HaMedina, Uktsasam Chutz LaMedina. There are some that are in the Medina and some are outside of. The Eilu Asher B'Medina, and even those that are inside the country, the Medina, Mehem Misha Achoirav El Beis HaMelech Umagamas Ponov B'derech Acheres. Because somebody that is in the king's country, and that means I don't want to put too much interpretation at this stage, but that means he has a sense and an understanding and an awareness that they are in the king's country, but their face is turned in the wrong direction. Their back is to the palace, and they are facing a different way. Umehem, and there is another group. There is a group that wants to. They know even that there is a Beis HaMelech. Their back isn't to the Beis HaMelech. They know there is a palace, and they want to get there. If they wish to gain entrance to the palace and to stand in front of the king, but they've never seen the inside of the palace. Of those, group 4 I think we're up to, of those that wish to enter the palace, they have come to him and they are walking around trying to find the sha'ar, the gate, which I think here means the gate inside the palace, right? So they are further, they're in the palace, but they're trying to find the specific doorway where the king, of the room where the king is. And the final group, those that are in the palace, in the antechamber. And then within them, then there's a group of people who are now in the same room as the king. But he hasn't seen the king or speaking with him. But once he gets into the king, but there's a last stage they have to work on, and that is and to see him, or so there's lots of different groups. Let's try and make a seder, and here he's now going to sketch out for us in an incredible way the different groups of Jews, depending on their connection, is the word. Das is connection, and how they achieve that and who they are. I'll let him talk for himself. He says, I'll now explain to you this mashal. Va'omer, and I will say, Omnam asher heim chutz la-medina, those that are outside of the Medina, heim kol ish mibnei adam she'ein loi emunas das. People that have no religion, no belief in a religious value system. Lo miderech iyun v'lo miderech Kabbalah. They've neither philosophically worked anything out, nor do they have a Messiah. And then he quotes Kiktzos HaTorah, Hamashotetim B'Tzafoin, V'Hakushiyim, V'Hamashotetim B'Doraim. He refers to various groups of nomads and people that were in his time where they were in his country. V'Hadoimim Lahem, Me'asher Itonu Ba'Aklimim Ha'elu, those that are with us in these parts. Okay. V'din Elu, K'din Ba'alei Chayim, She'eino Medabrim. They are at the same level as animals, She'eino Medabrim, Ve'enom Etzli B'Madregas B'nei Adam. And as far as I'm concerned, they have not lived up fully to the majesty, the dignity, the glory, the capacity of what it means b'madregas b'nei adam to be truly human. U'madregosam b'nimtzois lemata mimadregas ha'adam u'lemala mimadregas ha'kof. They are above that of a monkey, but they are not fully worthy of the title Adam. On the one hand, they look like Adam, and of course the Hakara is Yosem Mikaras HaKof. Their understanding of things is deeper than that of a primate, but because they have not chosen to activate their seichel, to work out meaning, the purpose of life, etc., they are, says the Rambam, as far as I'm concerned, they are not fully human. To be human is to activate that which makes you human, which is your brain, your das. And if you don't do that, you're more than you're an animal of some sort with a human characteristic. Fine. That's the first group. Then let's move on to the second group. Va'asherheim b'Medina. Now, then we move on to group 2, says the Rambam. There are those that are in the country, but they are facing the wrong way. Their back is to the palace. Who are these? These are people who have belief and some understanding and analysis. They end up with the wrong outcomes.
That sounds familiar.
Okay, yeah.
Been there.
No, I know what he means. We've discussed the Nebuchadnezzar Bikar is very good. I wasn't going to get caught up in that, but you're absolutely right, Gabby. Whether as a result of their analysis they end up with come out with a false outcome, or their Messiah was a false Messiah. And they are forever, because of these false perspectives, because they are facing in the wrong direction. This is not about blame. This is not about subjective judgment. This is a fact. Because of their reform / liberal whatever views which are wrong, irrespective about whether they're wrong because they worked it out incorrectly or they had the misfortune to have had that Messiah, but as they progress, they are walking in the wrong direction. You're walking away. So you're in the Medina, you believe there's a God, let's say, and again, this is to be stressed. This is not about blame. This is not about judgment. This is a fact. You're walking in the wrong direction. And as they keep going, they keep being further, faced in the wrong direction, and they are walking away from the Beis HaMelech. Now here the Rambam says some astounding things, which I will read and translate and not comment on. Ve'elu yoser ro'im min harishonim harbe. These are far worse off than the first group. We could speculate as to why that is. There's any number of reasons we could say it's because the likelihood of them turning back 180 degrees is very remote, as opposed to somebody who's never examined life. He might wake up one day and say, well, maybe I should examine it and get the right thing. But that's speculation. And it is these that there may be a need at some point. Again, and I should stress before I translate this for the tape, this was written at a time and a place where things were very different at many, many different levels, legally, societally, etc. But this is what the Rambam is saying. And these are those that at some point in time, it would be necessary lahorgam v'limchos zecher de'osam shelayitu zulasam. They pose a grave threat to the continuation of authentic Judaism. And therefore, this is my reading for Malin. You see what he's saying? And this, therefore, again, it's not a blame thing, but because their very existence poses a threat, then it might be necessary for them to be eliminated to, again, it's not a judgment thing. It's quite, but we'll move on, because that's not what I really want to focus on, but it's, now, V'horoitzim, then you have group 3. We're moving on to group 3, yes? V'horoitzim laveil beis hamelech ulikonis etzloi, elo shaloi ra beis hamelech klal. Those who know they're facing in the right direction. They're in the Medina. That means they have a religion and belief of some sort, whether it's analysis or whether it's a Messiah of some sort, but they're still not in the palace. But they're facing, they know there's more. They want more. They know there's more. They're facing in the right direction. They want to come into the Beis HaMelech. Elo shlei ra beis hamelech. Who are they in our Nimshal? Heim hamoin anshei haTorah. Rotzaleima amei ha'oretz ha'oiskim b'mitzvos. Group 3 are people who are sind in die Lager, kann man sagen? In der Lager. They're in the Medina. They know there's a God. Is my German bad? There was
in der Lage sein means to be capable.
Sorry, got it wrong.
In
Okay.
Lager sein doesn't sound good because Lager you think
Also camp. Yeah. Okay, das ist mein schlimmer Deutsch. Alles gut. Okay, weiter. Yeah, so wrong. Die falsche deutsche Begriff. Okay, so, but these are the Amei Haaretz. What?
The part of the tzibah.
Yeah, that's right. And Amei Haaretz ha'oiskim b'mitzvos, and they want more, and they realize there's more, but they just haven't been zeicher for whatever reason to learn more, etc. That's group number 3. Now, group number 4, hamagim beis el habayis ha'hilchim svivoi, those who reach the bayis, heim ha'talmudim, these are the Talmudists, ashehem ma'aminim deyos amitios miderach Kabbalah. Their emunah of the Talmudists are correct, and they are based on an authentic Messiah tradition. And they learn what it means to be an Oved Hashem. They have not habituated themselves to think deeply in the roots and sources of Torah, and they have not activated their mind to make true their level of emunah. That's group 4. Let's go on. Group 5, and here it splits off a bit. V'asher hichnisu atzmam la'ayin bi'ikorei hadas kvar nichnesu leproiz dor. Those who spend time also learning, let's say, hashkafa, thinking about the depth of the basic ideas of Torah. They're in the prosdor. They're in the corridor. Ubnei ha'adam sham chilukei hamadregas beloy sofek. And of course, there are many, many different levels within the prosdor. Aval mishe higia ladas moifes kol ma shenimtza olav moifes. Those that have worked out that which can be proven. V'yoda min ha'inyonim ha'eloikiyim amitas kol ma she'efsher shetoida amitosoi, and has worked out as much as it's possible to make strong and emes that which your emunah taught you. V'yikarev la'amitas ma she'i efsher boy rak lehiskarev el amitosoi, and he works on understanding deeper and deeper the things which he knows to be true from emunah and from Messiah, but he works them out more and more and more until they become more elemental and existential and essential and deep and rooted, the emes which we saw in the Rambam at the beginning of Hilchos Yisodei HaTorah. Then kvar higia im hamelech b'toich habayis. He is now with the melech b'toich habayis. Now, that's a majestic mashal, but we're not done yet. We've got more to do, and let's keep moving, because I want to try and see if, I know there's still a few pages, but we're going to run through. Please follow with me. I'm going to go as quickly, O ye of little faith. Follow with me. I can do it. I'm a fast reader.
I know that.
Well, let's go. But you focus. Focus with me.
No. Okay.
You ready? Let's go. 10 minutes, 15 minutes of concentration. It is appropriate that we start in this group of avodah after Hatzir HaSichli. Remember? After you have got a concept, an idea. Remember we saw in Moreh Nevuchim, the Seichel comes first. Yeah? When he has an understanding of Hashem and his actions, what he's able to understand. Now here the Rambam does something amazing. I'll tell you what he's going to say. He's going to talk about dveikus. But not Hasidic dveikus, as in closing your eyes and whatever that is or whatever that means, and I'm not denigrating it. Chas v'cholent. But he's talking about, the Rambam has an unbelievable different definition of dveikus. Dveikus is intellectual. It is, but more than that, the dveikus is as a result of your intellectual understanding of Hashem, it becomes a constant awareness, which comes via the Seichel, and there's an awareness of Hashem being with you the whole time. Unbelievable. Let's go further. Okay? Then so you've worked things out with your Seichel, and then you start being lehimoser elov, to be übergegeben to him. V'tishtadel lehiskarev lo, and you start working to become close to Hashem. V'techazak hadibuk asher beincho beinoi v'hu ha-Seichel. And this connection that you have to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, this dveikus, becomes stronger and stronger. What is that dveikus? V'hu ha-Seichel. I should have underlined it. Omar, it says, Ato horei solodas. Rabbi Moshe said that you have been shown to know, Ki Hashem Elokeim Eino Milvadoi. And then it says, V'yodata yom v'hashevoisa. Once you've got that, what do you do with it? V'hashevoisa levavecha.
That's the work.
Yeah, that's what he's going to say. That's what he's going to say. Rega, give him a chance. He's going to tell us how. He's going to say, Genauvi. V'omar du'u esash ki Hashem Elokeim. V'hine. Be'er o ha'toira. Ki zois ha'avoida ha'acharoina. First of all, you need to know, he says, that this avodah, this hishtadlus to get dveikus and close, can only be achar loitia ela achar hahasaga. Only once you have an intellectual appreciation. We've explained many times the love is on the basis of your understanding. And after that ahava can come this avodah, which Chazal have said, what does it mean? The person should put all of his focus on this basic idea, and to meditate on it as much as you can. Therefore, David HaMelech told his son Shlomo, what does that mean? And then he said, Da es Elikei avicha v'avdehu. That's what it means. Now let's go on. V'da. I'm going to miss out a bit. Go to the next paragraph where it's bold. V'da. If you, my son, the person, this reader of Moreh Nevuchim, if you were only a chacham amongst men to know this chachma, when you were eating breakfast, you need to eat. You have to do business. When your mind is focused on your food, when your mind is focused on something else, then you've stopped the dibuk, the dveikus between you and Hashem. And he is not with you. You're not with him, he's not with you. You have actively stopped the connection, the Wi-Fi, it's gone at that moment. And for this reason, and therefore the Hasidim were very makpid on the time that they were botel, They were makbid not to think about Hashem. David HaMelech says, Shivisi Hashem lenegdi somid. What does it mean? Hu Aimer, Eini mefana machshavta mimenu. I am never not thinking about Hashem. Uki'ilu hu yad yamini. It's like he's my right hand. You can't forget that you have a right hand. Keherevine Leclerc said to us, Umipnei zelo yamut. V'da. V'da. Shemasei ha'avodas ha'elu kulam, kikriyas ha'toira v'ha'tfila v'asois shara mitzvos. Be aware, says the Rambam, that the actions, the activities of these avodas, like Kriyas HaTorah, davening, and all the other mitzvahs, ein tachlis kavonosam rak lehislamed ulehisasek b'mitzvahs Hashem Yisbarach. The whole purpose of them is to be busy and bothered with the mitzvahs of Hashem and lahafnois me'eske ha'olam, and to be disconnected from anything to do with the world. Uki'ilu ato hisakta boy yisal. It's as if you're busy with God. Ubatalto mikol davar zulosoi. Nothing else exists. Aval im tispalel b'hano asfosecha. But if you're going to just clapper words, and your face is to the wall, but you're thinking about the latest business deal. You read the Torah, you learn Torah with your tongue, but your heart is somewhere else. Without understanding what you're doing. And any other mitzvah that you do with your limbs. You're wood chopping, you're doing something. If you're not thinking and focused on what you are doing, not the person who commanded you to do it, and you're not focused on the purpose, then you have not reached the tachlis. Okay? Umikan, next bit. Now says the Rambam, I will start putting you in the right way. Until you get to the big tachlis. Here is your exercises. When you daven and you say Shema, there should be nothing else at all going on in your mind. Don't be like those people that only have kavanah in the very first pasuk. Now, when you get used to this, when for many years you get into the habit of focusing totally, then whenever you're learning Torah or reading Torah or you're hearing Torah, be focused on entirely, only on what you are learning or listening to. And once you've got into that and you're totally able to do that, then and then you should get used to being constantly focused on everything, which is also Divrei Nevi'im, even the Kol HaBrochos Kulam. Think about the words you're saying. Now, when you've got, I'll move on. If you're able to get to that level, that you are now never when you say a shahakal are you thinking anything other than Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu melech ha'olam shehakol niyeh b'dvaroi, and you get to that, then then you can move on to where you're having breakfast. V'soif davar tosim machshavtecha b'mili de'alma beis acholcha beis shtiyascha beis ha'ischa b'merchetz beis sifrecha im ishtecha v'im bonecha ktanim. And then you'll get to a madrega when you put your machshava, when you are doing milah d'alma, you're eating, you're drinking, you're in the bathhouse, you're speaking to your wife, you're speaking to your kids, or you're schmoozing with people. I've given you many examples, he says. Then you can think about those things. But when you are doing things which are Torah and mitzvahs, then but what would be when you are not doing any of those? You're not busy talking to your wife, you're not learning Torah either. You're alone, you're by yourself, you're walking down the road. You wake up, He zoher ma'od milosim mechshavtcha be'itim hanechbodim aheim b'dover acha ela ba'avoda hi asichlis. Get used to thinking about Hashem constantly. Vehi lehiskare vel Hashem vela'amoid lefonav al haderech ha'amitis asher hidaticha lo al derech ha'hafaliyos hadimyonis. Zois hatachlis etzli efshel lahagia eleo mi sheyochen atzmoi lo me'an she'achochma b'zu haderech min ha'ergo. Okay? He says this is absolutely and utterly doable for a person. If you go through this, you can get to the stage where we're up to. He's up to the stage that somebody, if he's talking to his wife, he's talking to his wife. But anything other, if you're busy doing something, but anything else, you're walking down the road, you've just woken up, you're alone, Hashem, 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 thinking about him the whole time. Avol, b'hagia ish mibnei adam mehasagas hamitus v'simchosoi b'mashe hisig. And here he introduces something amazing. If this fills you with joy and meaning and purpose, then you can move on. That even when you're actually doing something, your brain can compartmentalize, and you can be having a conversation and be holding a conversation, and at the same time your brain is focused on Hashem. Even though your body is with men. Says the Rambam, I'm not saying that this is the Madrega all the Nevi'im managed. Hanemer alav v'nigash Moshe levado el Hashem v'nemer boi vayisham Hashem v'nemer levato poy amodi modik v'yishu b'yarnu v'zois gam ken madregas ha'ovois. Another chiddush. He says this was also the madrega of the ovois. Ad shenayda b'dadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadadaddI'm running, which are Avos and Moshe is by him and it's Achtus B'Hashem Hasagose, etc. Right. Right. I don't know if we're going to get the last point in. We're going to have to do it tomorrow. But we made good progress. So tomorrow we'll finish this off, and we've got one more massive chiddush to say on this page. He's sketched out for you a number of different layers. What fascinates me is this is the rationalistic Rambam that is championed by those that wish to use him that way, as being cold, clinical, philosophical. This is rapture. He is talking, and his understanding of is somebody who is in love with Hashem, somebody whose brain is constantly connected to Hashem. This is where we're going with this. This is dveikus. Yes, it's via the seichel, but it's the ability to be, as much as is possible, focused on Hashem. And he's going to talk more. We'll talk more about this tomorrow with Hashem.